but we cannot make him any bigger than he already is. You can't increase omnipotence, but you can magnify your perspective of God. You can do it as though I believe John said it this way: I must decrease so that he can increase. And you know what I found? That when there's less of Stan, there's got to be more of him. And that's what I long for. That's what I desire. That's what I want people, when they look at me, I don't want them to see me, but I want them to see somebody greater than me. Because see, what you see is what you get, and it ain't much. But what you can't see, if you'll get him, it'll be the greatest thing you ever had. Talk about how big and how powerful God is. In the dark night of the soul, God will give you a song that will bring a dawn of faith and encouragement. So in the dark night of his personal anguish, David sang a song of praise to the God who can make a way where there seemeth to be no way. And you might say, well, preacher, that's all good. That's Old Testament. I'm New Testament. Well, I'm glad you are. Here's your New Testament people. Paul and Silas did the same thing thousands of years later. They'd been arrested for doing a good deed, for casting a spirit of divination out of a young slave girl. After a sham of a trial, they were beaten with rods and imprisoned in the innermost dungeon with their feet in stocks. How did they respond? In a most remarkable way. Not like you and I would respond, I guarantee you that. Well, I can't speak for you, I can speak for me. But it says at midnight, instead of despairing and crying themselves to sleep, they sang hymns of praise to God. Paul and Silas made an exceptional choice to encourage themselves by praising God. Luke tells that while Paul and Silas prayed, the other prisoners were listening, and no doubt they were. I'm sure the prisoners were amazed at such surprising behavior. These men were different. They had something the other prisoners didn't have. They possessed a remarkable faith in their God, and their God responded with remarkable faith by delivering them from their dungeon of despair through a miraculous timed earthquake. The Bible tells us in Acts 16:26 that the foundation of the prisons began to shake. And immediately all the doors were opened and everyone's chains were loosed. Notice that. It wasn't just Paul and Silas. They may have been more people in that jail that were Christians, and I'm sure there were some that were not. But all of them's door came open, and all of them's chains fell. Why? Because Paul and Silas chose to make a difference. And I want to tell you tonight that you can make a difference where you're at. I thought one time I was having trouble on the job that I was on, and it was knocking me out of church, and I was disgusted, and I was frustrated with it, and I wanted to quit. And I talked to my pastor at the time, and I said, I feel like the Lord wants me to quit this job, and I believe that He's got something better for me. And he said, well, you don't need to quit that job till you get this other job. And I went in and I said, well, I just can't handle this no more. These guys don't care nothing about God. All they want to do is talk filthy and do things that's not right, and I don't want to be around that. And I thought I was real smart, and I told him, I said, the Bible tells me to shun the very appearance of evil, and them guys is evil. And I thought I had the upper hand on that pastor. But you know what he told me? He said, change the place where you're at. And I said, man, I can't. It's just me, and there's 3 or 4 of them, and they all come at one time. They don't come one-on-one. But you know what? I found me a way to work around that. Me and Jesus did. And you know what? They didn't come at me at 3 no more against one, but they would come one-on-one, and you know when they came? They were different. Their talk was different. One came to me and said, man, I'm so sorry. Said, I know there was something different about you. And said, my dad's a Pentecostal holiness preacher, and said, I shouldn't have been doing you the way I was doing you. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, nobody, you sure shouldn't. If you tell me who your daddy is, I'll go tell on you. But see, I didn't have to go tell on him because there was already somebody else that was listening. And the Bible tells us that if God be for us, who can be against us? So you're out there tonight. and you're battling and you're fighting, let me tell you, keep on fighting the good fight of faith. Goes on to talk about joy. And the first things that we got to recover when we encourage ourselves is we got to get our joy back. I believe Isaiah spoke about in the 12th chapter that with joy we could draw water out of the wells of salvation. If you ain't got no joy, another place, the scripture says, the joy of the Lord is my strength. That's where your strength's at. It's in the joy of the Lord, not in nothing else. When the devil is after, what the devil is after through excessive grief and lingering depression is your strength. The strength that is found in the joy of the Lord. He may be like a lion, but not as a metaphor for majesty, but as an opportunist seeking to prey upon the weak and the feeble. He don't want confrontation with strength, but he seeks to exploit weakness. And as a